Good day, everyone. You're welcome to today's live stream. And on today's live stream, we'll be considering Africa and mental health. Mental health, as we all know, is actually a critical aspect of one's being, right? And also, places like Africa have greatly neglected their mental health. And it's of worrisome concern, which actually calls for urgent attention because without one being mentally healthy, a lot of aspects of the individual life will be greatly disturbed. Hence, the need for discussions like this. So, we are going to be considering some things on today's discussion, right? We'll explore the complex issues surrounding mental illness, the trauma and stigma on the continent, and discussions on innovative solutions, personal stories, expert insights that highlight pathways towards healing, recovery, and a mentally healthier Africa. That's the purpose of today's discussion. I would like us to sit back, pay rapt attention, because a lot are actually brought on the table today. You really appreciate the fact that you connected to a discussion like this. Interestingly, all questions, as much as you have, as you bring it up, answers will be given to them. So let's start up right away. You'll permit me that in this discussion, so we could have direction on what we are talking about, and so that we'll be guided on the discussion. It's necessary I had to pen down some important notes, which is going to guide the discussion. So you permit me at some point to be making reference, so we'll be in line for all we're going to be discussing on. I believe you are actually getting me. Please, at any point you are not getting me, do well to call on my attention. Let me know so I can rephrase so that we don't just be discussing on and on and on and going. And then you're actually missing out a lot from it, right? So, the first aspect we want to be looking at is the state of mental health in Africa. We're going to be considering what exactly does mental health looks like in Africa. We are going to consider factors contributing to mental health issues in Africa, the impact of mental health on African communities. We are going to also consider breaking the silence and building solutions for mental health concerns in Africa. I'm also going to talk about, give examples, life examples. Then, on the conclusive end, we're going to see a call to action, what we ought to do. So let's go back to the aspect of the state of mental health in Africa. Globally, mental health has been a thing of concern. Back in the dark days, the medieval periods, mental health was really a challenge as to how to diagnose, how to manage it, where to run to for solutions, whom to run to for solutions, were really things of concern to people. Most persons did not even know they were having mental health related concerns until the advent of the scientific age. In fact, in those days, especially oh, I'm very privileged. So, symptoms of the period or we call it the immunological period, like era of demons, era of the era of hospital. In those days, when one have mental health related concerns. We go as far as boring holes on the head of the individual just to look for a remedy to that matter. We also go as far as turning the individual, bringing them into forward, just for those wild animals, and instead of having people stories, right? Also, the persons were excommunicated, were driven out from regarding the bigger population. These were strategies in the dark age that managing mental health concerns. Then, going to the political, even the protest was not just the thing, black, nor was it a thing that black people or was because popular people said higher class this call for close attention, things to tell, where people are offense, punishment, but punishment will be given to them over there. And then missionary bodies they came together. They also built places where people who don't have sufficient funds, just like those wealthy people, they could go there and then receive treatment, receive therapy. But in the scientific age, where there was increasing awareness as to that mental health conditions were not just things of caused by some evil spirits, some witchcraft, and so on, that it was a thing that has a lot of factors that are responsible for its causation. Hence, there was a need to develop on possible therapies that could be used to handle these conditions. So you now have in the scientific age, you have the psychotherapy, you have dance therapy or music therapy, you have occupational therapy and so on, which were related to causes or factors that actually cause these mental health related concerns. Okay, you look at those factors that cause them. Hence, they develop therapy that are tailored towards those particular factors. Now, coming down to our age, mental health disorders are prevalent in Africa, with an estimated number of about 100 million people are suffering from one mental health concern or the other, such as depression, anxiety, and other forms of psychosis or psychotic disorders. Africa has only 1.1% of the world's psychiatrists, despite having 15% of global population. So it's estimated by WHO that Africa, which makes up about 15% of the entire global family, has only 1.4% of its total population being psychiatrists or persons who are mentally trained to handle these conditions. Mental health services are scarce, especially in rural areas, and are often underfunded and understaffed. Now, if you go to certain rural areas, they're telling us that most places they don't even have facilities that handles mental health related concerns. And for those that have it, they are understaffed, they are underfunded. Now, there were also issues with stigma and discrimination. A lot of persons that have this condition or they have family members that have mental health related concerns, they were also discriminated. There was stigma attached to them. And there was a wide spread of these mental health conditions that were not given appropriate attention, which were leading to social isolation for those who were suffering from stigma or stigmatization and different they suffered from isolation, certain forms of abuse. As I said earlier, you will remember I talked about some of them, their head, do borehole on it just to allow the evil spirit escape. Some were taken to inside the forest and then abandoned there. A couple of them will be beaten up till they give up, just to see that the evil spirit is being removed from the individual body. Some were chained and so on. So those were some of the inhuman treatment that people with mental health related concerns were receiving. And then there was a need to pay close attention to look for a better way to manage this concern. Now, factors that were contributing to some of these mental health related challenges in Africa, or that are still contributing to these challenges, they include poverty and economic instability. Now, I'll tell you for free that mental health therapy or services, they are not cheap. They are not cheap at all. Excuse me a bit. They are not cheap at all. They are very expensive because the services are underfunded by the government or philanthropists. They are actually underfunded, and so they are very expensive. So it's not everybody that can afford to also benefit from these services. And a good number of them may be as a result of conflict and other political instabilities in those environments were the reasons why some of these challenges were prevalent. Sorry, please, think I need to put on the glasses. So those were some of the challenges that we were facing. In addition to this, we had that there were issues that related to some chronic illnesses such as HIV, hepatitis, and the rest. That some of these conditions, because of its terminal end, most persons were manifesting psychological issues or behavioral issues, and also cultural and traditional beliefs that perpetrated stigma and discriminations. Mind you, I said earlier, if you follow through, that some of these places, they believe that these mental health related concerns are actually caused by evil spirit, and so they excommunicated some of those people. They drove them into the forest and so on. Now we also have limited access to education and employment opportunities. A couple of persons are not literate enough to know that not all issues that relate to mental health are as a result of one evil spirit or the other, or as a result of someone not being employed. Some, a toxic employment environment, a toxic working place can also cause challenges to an individual mental health. In addition to this, facilities that do not have sufficient staff, they could not perfectly give treatment to these individuals. All right. So that will take us to the impact of mental health on African communities. What are the impacts? Mental health issues can actually affect anyone, regardless of age, regardless of sex, or their socioeconomic status. It doesn't select. There are different conditions that can affect any age. In addition to this, untreated mental illnesses can lead to poor academic performances and poor work performance. It can also cause strain in relationships. It can also increase the risk of substance use in an individual. There could also be the risk for suicide for those persons who are depressed because of those conditions. So, what are we saying in essence? There are mental health related challenges, these health related cases, they actually have some impact on the society, ranging from suicide, substance use disorder, or work related challenges, poor performance at the workplace, poor academic performances. These are some of the challenges they faced. The next thing is that we have mental health issues that can also have a ripple effect on family and communities, perpetuating circles of poverty and disadvantage. Once the mental health status of the community in general is actually poor or services are not there to manage them, it could lead to a circle of poverty and disadvantage in general to the society. Now, what then should we do? We need to break the silence and build solutions. How do we offer solutions to these challenges? There should be increasing awareness and education about mental health related issues in the churches, our clubs, our organization, and so on. Stigma towards people that have mental health conditions should be reduced because they need our empathy, they need our love, they need our support for them to bounce back effectively. They need our support. So we should actually render support to these persons. Next is that we have to also strengthen the mental health services and increasing access to the care. How do we strengthen it? By funding facilities or also building facilities that will render mental health service access to this would in a greater way remedy some of these challenges that mental health is facing in Africa, or Africa is facing as it regards to the mental health of its citizens. Now, factors that relate to culture and traditions that lead to poor mental health should be eradicated in the sense that only cultural practices and traditions that promote mental health should be promoted. Things such as, for instance, the one that we call female genital mutilation can also lead to mental health. It can lead to mental health challenge because when infections and other those pain and all those things come up, they could manifest mental health challenges. Female, sorry, how they call it, male inheritance, where female are not given rights to inherit things. It leads to unemployment. It increases the poverty rate. So traditions or traditional practices that do not promote mental health, they should be eradicated. They need to encourage research and innovation in mental health is of utmost attention. It needs immediate attention so that there will be evolution in the services that are rendered in rehab centers, mental health facilities. In those days, we have multi medications. You want to give a particular medication to a mental health patient. Because in mental health, we have what we call single diagnosis, we have dual diagnosis, we have multiple diagnoses. Now, say the individual is having multiple diagnoses and you want to give medication to cover all those diagnoses. In those days, when mental health was really in its infant, you need to give different tablets. But these days, they are actually reduced, where one tablet can actually handle a lot of challenges or conditions. So therefore, there is need for more research and innovation in both the innovation, the services that are rendered, the approach to the services, and so on. There's need for innovation in those areas. Now, what are the personal stories? I'll just share one as it relates to this very discussion. I once had a client who was managed for substance related concerns. The guy has actually passed through the detoxification phase and was now for full-time long stay rehabilitation. The relative came with one complaint or the other looking for discharge of this client. We know that finance is a major challenge for most persons. But on the other hand, it wasn't just challenge in this, sorry, finance in this case. It was the thought that this substance that this guy is into is because there is a spiritual manipulation on him that led him to the use of this substance. Whereas it's not so. It's not so. Some persons go into substance because of peer group influences. Some person go into substance because of depression. Some person go into substance because they lost this thing, job or a loved one. Some persons will go into substance because they are just experimenting things. So what are we saying in essence? It is not just one thing that could lead to a mental health challenge. And so we should not spiritualize or use religion to cover up where we are seeing a clear-cut mental health challenge. So that's for that guy. Those were the factors, those were the challenge. One, the acts that relates to the religion of the individual, and then finance. So there is a need for urgent concern and urgent attention as to promote the mental health in Africa. Mental health is a critical issue in Africa that requires urgent attention and action. By breaking the silence and building solutions, we can work together creating mentally healthier Africa. Let us continue to raise awareness. Let us continue to raise awareness, reduce stigma, and promote mental well-being for all individuals in Africa and global in the global family. What are the call to action from today's discussion? We all have to get involved in mental health awareness. We all have to get involved in mental health awareness campaign and initiative. It's not just my team, it's our team. It should be considered in that form or in that fashion. Support organizations that provide mental health services and advocate for mental health policies. There have to be reforms in the policies that protect the rights of these individuals. We know a good number of these individual rights, once they are mentally derailed, a couple of them, they no longer have access. For instance, most society don't give them access to will, access to vote, and so on. So there are a lot of those rights